Have you ever felt so discouraged because no matter what you do, your partner still treats you badly? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Why detachment is your best boundary to set in toxic relationships, and how you can start practicing it today. But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So if you're in a toxic relationship, you're made to feel like you're the problem, like you're the one who needs to change. But that's just part of their toxic behavior, which is why it feels so unsafe, because in toxic relationships, traditional boundaries don't work. And that's why detachment is so valuable. If you're in a toxic relationship, say me too, this video is going to help. So what is detachment? Detachment is basically letting go of certain people or situations that are upsetting you. You're not trying to fix or change what they're doing. You're actually stepping back and protecting yourself. And this is a very powerful tool, especially in relationships where we don't feel safe. Detachment is an internal boundary. It's choosing peace instead of getting caught up in someone else's chaos. So why is detachment so important, especially in toxic relationships? Because you can't protect yourself without it. What I don't want for you is to stay in that toxic situation or that toxic argument and just let that person continue their toxic behavior. Maybe you think that if they just vent and get it all out, they'll calm down. But how much damage does the toxic person actually do before they calm down? That's why it doesn't work to just let them vent. When somebody is emotionally abusive, that's when detachment is the best boundary for you to set, because you're not getting into a heated conversation by stating your boundary. You're actually going to be practicing your boundary by using detachment. And let me show you what that looks like. So detachment focuses on what you can control, mainly your own actions, your own words, your own behaviors. It's not about trying to fix or control or stop what somebody else is doing. That's usually our natural inclination when we're being mistreated, is we want to stop that behavior. And while I totally understand that, how successful has that ever been for you? Have you really been able to get that toxic person to stop yelling at you or gaslighting you? I'm guessing the answer is no, which is why this video is going to help. So why do traditional boundaries not work in toxic relationships? So here's why. Healthy people respect boundaries. Toxic people don't. Toxic people will twist your words, gaslight you, which basically means they're going to purposely question your reality so that you believe what they're telling you versus what's inside your gut. They'll also punish you for speaking up. So instead of feeling empowered, you're emotionally exhausted because you're being mistreated, and I don't want that for you. So the first thing I want you to do to detach from a toxic relationship is to create a mantra. Basically a positive statement that's going to help you calm down in the heat of the moment and not take their toxic behavior personally. Something like, I am enough. This isn't my fault. I am only responsible for what I say and do. Something in the moment to remind you that their toxic behavior is not about you. It's about how they're choosing to show up in the relationship. So another way you can detach from a toxic relationship is to say less, because the toxic person is going to use your words against you. They're going to convince you that what you just said wasn't okay. And they'll even convince you that you're being abusive. And if they get you to believe that, then it really creates confusion. The challenge here is to stop defending yourself against the toxic person. This is why detachment is so important, because the minute you notice that they are mistreating you and it's not improving, that's when I want you to practice detachment. How do you practice detachment? You vote with your feet. You leave the room. You don't stay and participate in it, because staying and participating in toxic behavior only fuels it, and I don't want that for you. Now, it's really hard not to want to defend yourself against toxic behavior. But here's where you need extra support. I want you to have that trusted person to go to, or that support group, so that you can talk it out. Because not defending yourself doesn't mean that you can't be heard. It's just trying to be heard in your toxic relationship usually isn't a good idea, because they're going to use it against you, and I don't want that. Part of detaching from toxic relationships is doing whatever you can to protect yourself and not participate in toxic behavior. Another way to practice detachment with toxic relationships is to practice the 3 C's of Al-Anon. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you definitely can't cure it. This is a great reminder that their toxic behavior has nothing to do with you. It's how they're showing up. And unless they see a problem with it, they're not going to change it. They're going to blame you for it because that's the game. The game is tag you're it. So what I like about the 3 C's is it reminds you what you're responsible for, yourself. So part of what happens in toxic relationships is they convince you that you're causing it. And that's just blatantly not true. Somebody else's behavior is completely their choice. It's not about what you're doing or not doing in the relationship. Even though they say that, I want you to remember that you didn't cause their toxic behavior. You're not responsible for what they're saying and what they're doing. And the more you can embrace that, that's going to be a healthy form of detachment that's going to help you not feel blamed or tagged as being at fault in the relationship. The next thing I want you to do to detach from a toxic relationship is walk away when the conversation is going downhill. This requires you to know the early red flags of their behavior. For instance, are they starting to yell at you, gaslight you, name call you? When the conversation starts taking a negative turn, that's when I want you to practice detachment. I want you to excuse yourself and say, you know what? This conversation isn't working for me. I'm going to take a break. Leave. Don't ask permission to leave. Don't let them know, hey, is it okay if I leave? Because they're going to always say no. If you don't feel safe, then leave the room and text them. Just say, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk. Let's talk later. Because staying and participating in toxic behavior never works. It's never going to change because unless the other person is willing to be accountable for what they're saying and doing, it's just going to continue. Because toxic people want to be right and they want control over you. And that's why detaching is so powerful, because when you choose not to participate in that conversation, that sends them a message that, you know what, that's not okay. You're not going to stay and be mistreated, because that is the power of detachment. And honestly, that's why traditional boundaries are really not appropriate sometimes in toxic relationships. The more you say, this behavior is unacceptable for me, I need you to treat me with respect, you've probably tried all those things. But often when we try to set a boundary, it just makes it worse. That's why detaching is such a powerful boundary, because you don't have to say anything. Because your safety in a toxic relationship is the most important thing for you, not what they think or how they're reacting. The other way to practice detachment in toxic relationships is I want you to have realistic expectations. So much of the time, I hear my clients say, if only they would treat me better. So you try to advocate and use the tools and get them to see their disrespect towards you, but it doesn't work. Realistically, has this person ever treated you with respect? If the answer is no, then you have some work to do. You may need to consider whether or not you need to stay in that relationship. But at the very least, you need to practice detachment probably on a regular basis, because we don't want to give them any fuel to abuse you. And the more you can step out of those heated, toxic conversations, the safer you'll be. The other reason why having realistic expectations is so important is that it's going to help you see where the relationship is headed. Knowing that the relationship is limited. So the only positive change you can impact is by changing your own behavior, by not putting up with their abuse, by learning new skills so that you can stay calm and not get into the blame game with them. Now, I'm not saying this is easy, because it's super challenging not to react to a toxic person that's blaming you. Because what detachment is going to do is it's going to preserve your energy. You're not going to waste it on trying to get the other person to change. You're going to use it to preserve your sanity and to tell yourself, you know what, this isn't about me. I don't have to participate in abusive behavior. That's the power you have to protect yourself in these kind of relationships. Now, if you are considering leaving your relationship, I want you to go watch my video on the 10 steps for letting go of someone you love. Thanks so much.